This is a brand new model year 2021 Toyota Corolla Altis One Make Race car. It's just been delivered 0 kilometers to Be Quick Racing, who are going to race it in the Altis class in Toyota Motorsport this year. Basically, most of you know Toyota Motorsport is a highly popular one make series in Thai motorsport that's been going for years and years. I can't say when it started. I've been here 10 years and it was well established when I arrived, so a long time before that. It's always popular, the grids are always full, and it always attracts people from around Asia. You get a lot of Japanese drivers, Taiwanese, Hong Kong, Singapore, places like that. Last year with COVID they dried up, but they'll be back. But it's a very popular series for people around Asia to come because it's so cost effective, so cheap, and you have a lot of fun and you learn a lot racing these cars. The series basically has 4 categories. There's 2 levels of Vios. One's a more basic level that's focused on lady drivers, a lady cup, exclusively for ladies. Then there's a Vios class, which is for everyone. There's also a class for the Hilux Revo pickup, and a lot of people want to go pickup racing, so Toyota give you a grounding where you can start learning in pickups. And with pickups accounting for almost half the car market here, obviously they're very popular, they have a lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of people grow up driving them, they want to race them, so Toyota give you that opportunity. Then at the top of the pyramid sits the Corolla Altis class, the one make class, and basically this is a 2021 car, but this new generation car was introduced last year for the model year 2020. Toyota built about 15 or 60 of them in the first batch, and there was a real demand for them. This year they've built a second batch, again about 15 and 16 cars, and again they've been massively oversubscribed. People want to get their hands on them, and in fact Be Quick wanted 2. They wanted 2 last year, but they've only managed to get 1 this year. So that kind of shows how in demand and how many people want this class. And with the 15 or so cars last year, another 15 or so this year, that's going to be a big grid, a packed grid. Maybe they have to split the race into 2 classes, which they sometimes do when they're oversubscribed. But it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of exciting racing. And apart from coming up through the Vios or the Hilux Revo ranks, really with a car like this, you can go into it from, say, karting. You may need to acclimatize yourself and do testing with a closed roof car, but it really is a grassroots car that you can go from. If you're skilled at karting that level, you can jump into a car like this. You can get to grips with it fairly quickly. And for this new generation car, Toyota have pushed the boat out a little bit. Basically, they're one make race cars. They're the production cars. They strip out everything you don't need, so the weight's reduced. They put in all the safety stuff like roll cages, kill switches, fire extinguishers. But this one, they've gone up a little bit more. They put a sequential box in it, and so you start to learn how to use that, which is interesting, because if you are going to make a career out of racing now, you're going to be driving that sort of transmission, so you learn straight away. So this is a very relevant car. They've also tweaked the suspension a little bit more than they did on the last car, but basically this is a production car. When you buy it, you get red plates on the front and back. You can retrofit it to a road car if you wanted to, and you buy it through the way someone would buy a Toyota, so it actually goes straight into their finance scheme. And if you want to pay cash for it, you kind of have to lift it out of the finance scheme, because they put it straight there, just as if you bought a Corolla Altis to drive on the road or for a taxi. This generation car, also talking about taxis, they've put a little bit more effort into the styling. The Corolla it's a very basic car, and with it being known as a Bangkok taxi, customers don't really want to buy it that much. So its sales are pretty poor, and it's entry-level versions that sell where you don't make a margin. So Toyota pushed the boat out a bit on the styling of this. You can see it's got quite an aggressive front end on it. It's got a body kit on it, spoiler on the back. They've done it up a little bit. Now it's a much more cool, much more stylish car, and that translates into making it look a more cool, a more dynamic and purposeful and mean race car. So this is a nice step forward. It's a great car for people to learn in, and for Be Quick Racing, they have a young driver program and a young engineer program. That's what they want it for. They want the drivers to learn, they want their engineers to learn. Drivers are going to learn racing in this, the engineers are going to learn setup and building cars and repairing them. So it's great for that. It's a great step on the ladder. And now I'm just going to look at one or two of the details of this car. If we go to look under the bonnet, it still has the original bonnet catch inside, which I've just pre-clipped before, but we've also got bonnet pins as well, racing style, so that absolutely sure the bonnet doesn't fly open, because the worst thing can happen with these rear hinged bonnets is for it to fly up when you're racing along. So it's got more safety here in terms of the bonnet pins. And then we open it up and we have a look inside the engine. Underneath the bonnet, you've got a very familiar engine. Toyota's 4-cylinder 1.8 litre petrol engine is well known by everyone. It's a very robust, very solid engine. It's stock, it's pretty much unchanged. There's one or two little tweaks here and there for a racing application, but essentially power, dynamics are all the same. And really this is an engine that you shouldn't have to be rebuilding. It should be lasting you the lifetime of the car. Racing is racing obviously, and things happen, but in theory you look after this engine, it should last you a long time, good few years. And that's the idea with Toyota Motorsport series. They just cut the costs down everywhere and make sure that you can go racing more affordably than anywhere else. So let's have a look inside this car. It's a kind of a mix of production stripped out for race use, and it's basically got some production parts still in it, and it's got some safety parts and a couple of race bits. And the thing that stands out immediately is this big aluminium handle. This is a sequential type stick, and basically this, if you're going to race anywhere in any class now in the future, you're going to be using one of these. So Toyota are teaching you how to use this right from the start, and this is essential and useful. It's the big change on the car, and it's a very important change, and it makes the Altis a lot more relevant to people who want to learn to race. Inside, the cockpit has been pretty much stripped out of the non-essential bits, but it still has the production stuff around. You can see the dashboard is here, all the switches, the rear window heater, the front window heater, the air conditioning is here, the hazard warning switch, the vents and knobs for to blow your air around. It's obviously got the wipers and the headlights. Down here you've got the electronic brake hill holder, you've got cup holders if you should want to take your Starbucks out, or maybe on your installation lap. If you do that, you're catered for, although getting it into your mouth with a crash helmet on might be something different. You've still got the leather cap here and the holder for the oddments box. So there's production touches in it. Into it goes safety things mainly, and you can see the roll cage has been built very nicely, very beautifully integrated, and it goes straight through the vents in the dashboard, so you don't damage the dashboard. You can retrofit this at a later date if you wanted to turn it into a road car. So that the roll cage is nice, it's solid. Toyota know how to make a safe car. It's got the fire extinguisher here on the brace for the front seats. It's got a kill switch right here. This is where normally you would have the LED screen where you would tap to get your Apple CarPlay or your GPS, but that's a blanking plate, and you've got a kill switch here. And it's also got a race seat, and also to help you save money, it's still got a runner, so you can move it backwards and forwards like this by pulling the handle. It's not completely fixed in like a race car. So again, that's bringing the cost down. It's a solid stopper that holds it, but it's giving you a little bit of extra cost. Anyone can jump into this car. You can share it with a teammate, for example. They can jump in one session, you can jump in the next session. You don't need seat pads or anything like that. It's just ready to go, and that's the nice thing about it. It's also got a Sabelt steering wheel, which is very nice. You got the engine start stop, the production one that you use to start the car is still here. Use it to start the car as well. So let's put our foot on the usual way. We bring the key here into range like you would do with a normal Toyota. Foot on the brake, press the engine start, and we fire up, and that sounds pretty nice. That's the big difference to a road car. Suddenly that's not a road car engine. I don't want to rev it up too much in here because we're in next to now I'm in hospital here in this race shop. We start revving engines here, we're going to wake up the patients. But just tickling over and idling, that sounds pretty nice. And if I give it a little bit of gas, you can see that's really nice. That's a racing engine. You get into that car, you hear that noise, you smile, you're in the zone as a racing driver. We'll switch it off again. You've still got some other production bits here, like the bezels around have still got the numbers for the automatic box. So it's a pretty nice cockpit. You've got electric windows still here. They've kept the door cards, they've kept the door handles, and like I say, you operate the electric windows to get in and out of it. So you've got some nice little touches. And coming in a bag here, you've got the window net as well, which you fit to the car before you start racing. That's mandatory as well. So you've got all the safety things you need in here, all the racing things, and it feels like a race car. It doesn't feel like a Formula 1 car or a GT3, but it does have a real race car feel. You sit in this cockpit, you see the road, you're pretty low. Center of gravity is low on a race car, so you're sitting down looking up, and I'm 185 centimeters and I'm still sitting down there looking up. That's what you do in a race car. It's not a comfortable SUV crossover type thing. You have to work to win races. You have to work around what's best for a race car. So yeah, it's a nice cockpit. I think people enjoy being in this. They will enjoy this. They will feel they're in a race car and they're ready to race. When the lights go green, you're off. We're just going to look at the wheels and tyres, because it runs on pretty nice 17-inch wheels. They come from Lenzo, which is a long-time partner of Toyota Motorsport Thailand, and so they help make the car look pretty cool. 17 inch is a pretty decent size to find on a one make entry-level type car, so they give the car a lot of style. It runs on 215/45 tyres from Yokohama. Yokohama are the official tyre supplier for Toyota's One Make series, so everyone's running on the same tyre. They're street legal tyres. They should last you a whole season. So Toyota pull the whole cost of tyres out. Usually when you go racing, tyres can be the most expensive consumable that you have, because you come to a series with a race weekend with multiple sets of tyres. You're constantly changing them, and this Toyota, wet or dry, whatever, you get out on these tires. So they've just taken out the biggest cost in going racing, or the biggest consumable cost when you're actually at a race weekend, and they give you these pretty nice looking wheels, decent tires. Yokohama are a good brand. They understand dynamics, they understand performance tires, so these are a great tire to run on, a great tire to learn on. One thing I said before, this car is completely road legal. When you buy it, you pick it up with the red plates and you drive it away. You don't have to bring a slide for it. So again, you're cutting your costs straight down there. But this is a completely road legal car. And interestingly, in the window, you get the homologation eco sticker, which gives you the details of the car, which is mandatory for a production car. And this tells you that its CO2 emissions are 150 grams per kilometre, which is okay, but not fantastic. Its consumption is 6.4 litres per 100 kilometres, and you get all the details down here of the car. It's a Corolla Altis GR Sport, to give it its full name. We've got the chassis number here. It's in pearl white. It's got a 1798cc engine. It's got 225/45 17-inch tyres. It's got a 5-speed gearbox, and then you get all the details like the LED and things like that on it. So you get all the details of the car, and right down at the bottom we've got the price tag. It's 1 million baht. It's actually 1,009,000 baht, and that's the price of the car. That's what you pay for this race car. So basically the same as Altis spec, and it is a car that you can put on the road. The roll cage is put through the dashboard vents. You can see here. So you can take it out if you wanted to, put the vents back in again, and you can make it a road car. So it can be retrofitted if you want, and it is a production road car. It comes out, it's gone through the homologation process, and for Toyota to try and homologate a race car would be hugely expensive. So to be able to get it to a level where it can go through as a production car with these additions and subtractions is perfect. It keeps the cost very competitive. We'll just finish at the back end of the car, and you can see this is a pretty nice aggressive back end of a Altis. Usually these cars are a bit bland, but this generation they've pushed the boat out a bit, and this production kit finishes it up very nicely. It's got a fairly big boot spoiler here, so, and it's got a splitter at the bottom, and you can see there's a purposeful racing exhaust tip there, and that goes through to a free flow box and a racing exhaust, so it sounds really nice. When this fires up, it sounds like a real race car. And it's got the GR badge because all Toyota's high-end models now have Gazoo Racing branding on them. It's like the performance version branding, so it's got the GR badge on it. So at the back end it finishes off as a pretty nice car. It looks pretty good, it's pretty potent. All round it's got some decent styling, and if you make some effort on the wrap, integrate your sponsors in, you can give your sponsors a stylish car that they can go out and use for their marketing purposes. So we've been pretty much around the car and seen everything. The last thing I want to talk about is the Toyota Motorsport calendar for this year. And you've got a car, classes, everything like that have been designed for drivers to learn to drive. What the series does is gives you so much all-round experience. So you've got temporary street circuits and you've got a full race circuit. So basically this year the season starts in May in Phuket. That takes the series down to a street course. Well, it's around a park on the edge of the old town. It's a temporary course around a park. Toyota's been going there for around 10 or 12 years now, and that's a temporary circuit, and it gets a lot of fans because it's right on the edge of the old town. They all come in to see the races. That's in May. In July, Toyota supports Bang Sen, the Bang Sen Grand Prix. It's just the best race in Southeast Asia. For me, it's one of the best races in the world, and I've been all around the world to hundreds of racetracks. Bang Sen, there is nothing like it for atmosphere, for that sort of thing, but also as a street circuit, it's tough, it's demanding. You make a mistake, bang, you're in pretty hard barriers. But it's an FIA grade 3 track, so it's got things like Tech Pro in dangerous spots. It's been very carefully designed to be as safe as possible, so you get a fantastic race experience, and you're also part of the Bang Sen Grand Prix, which is just one of the ultimate races. You get all that atmosphere. You go out to race on the same track on the same day that things like Porsche Carrera Cup, Thailand Supercar GT3, maybe Formula 3 this year or next year. These big series, you're out there racing with them. Maybe it's a little bit earlier in the morning, but that's just unbeatable. Then they have 2 rounds together in Buriram, and that's a world-class circuit. It holds MotoGP, it can hold Formula 1. It's got that level of infrastructure to do that if they so wanted. So you're learning to drive on a world-class racetrack, wide open, ultra fast straights, high-speed turns, slower turns. You've got everything there. And then finally in November the series ends in Chiang Mai, and that's very similar to Phuket. It's another temporary track laid out. This time it's laid out in the car parks of the 700 years anniversary stadium. So it's a bit of a Mickey Mouse circuit like Phuket, but you've got to get it right. There's some tricky bits. There's a bus stop which you've got to get the angles right. There's a couple of chicanes that you've got to get right. There's some fast straights, and that track is always dirty because there isn't that much track time. There's cars use it overnight, and there's dust. never gets clean. So you've got to be really careful. You've got to power that car around the circuit, and you've got to make sure that you don't end up in a barrier. And a lot of people say, oh, they're a bit Mickey Mouse, Phuket and Chiang Mai, but they're not. They teach you how to race. If you want to win there, you've got to work pretty hard. So that's basically it. It's 5 rounds this year, a real mix. And obviously with Phuket, with Bang Sen, with Chiang Mai, they're near urban centres, so the crowds come in. So you're driving in front of spectators, and that's a pretty cool thing as well, to have that. So you've got the knowledge, then you make it up the racing ladder, you make it to be a big time driver, you've got a taste of that, what to expect, all the crowds waving and cheering and watching you. So you're getting the full-on racing experience. So Toyota have done very well, I think, to put together their calendar. It's a really nice balance, a nice mix, and it chimes perfectly well with this grassroots series about learning and progressing.